The starship glided silently through the darkness of space. Inside the vessel's command center, a blue-skinned alien with 4 arms stared at the screen in front of him. Ambassador Trellick had never seen such destruction. The images showed burning cities and creatures running in fear. "How long has this been happening?" he asked, his voice soft and worried. The communications officer turned to face him. "The Ardani sent their first distress call 3 cycles ago. By the time we sent scouts, half their outer colonies were gone." Trellick closed his 3 eyes slowly. The Lumari Council would not be happy. Another peaceful species was being wiped out, and once again the Lumari could only watch. "Prepare my shuttle," he said. "The Council must see this immediately." The Lumari Council chamber was a vast room filled with light. 12 representatives sat in a circle, their blue skin shimmering under the artificial sunlight. They watched the images from the Ardani worlds with growing horror. "These Vex creatures are monsters," said Councillor Vareem. "They are harvesting the Ardani for their biological components." "What can we do?" asked another councillor. "We have no military force capable of stopping them." Trellick stepped forward. He had been waiting for this moment. "There might be a solution, though many will find it concerning." The room grew quiet. The head councillor nodded for him to continue. "We could ask the humans for help." The reaction was immediate. Several councillors stood up in protest. "The Deathworlders? You want to invite them into this part of space?" "They are violent, unpredictable creatures. They evolved on a planet that should have killed them. They drink poison for pleasure." Trellick raised his hands for silence. "Yes, they are dangerous. But the Vex are already here, already killing. The humans have something we lack. They know war. They understand violence because they come from a world filled with it." The head councillor frowned. "Ambassador Trellick, you realize what you're suggesting. Humans are quarantined to their sector for good reasons. Their planet has nearly twice our gravity. Their bodies can withstand radiation levels that would kill us. They eat foods that would poison most species. And they might be exactly what we need," Trellick replied. "The Ardani are peaceful plant-like beings. They have no chance against the Vex, neither do we. But humans were born fighters." After hours of debate, the council reached a decision. They would send Trellick to Earth, but only to request limited help. No one wanted a full human military presence in their space. The United Nations Space Command Outpost orbited Mars, a red yaw, dot in the distance. Trellick's shuttle approached slowly, broadcasting the diplomatic codes they had been given years ago when first contact was established. "Lumari vessel, this is UNSC Mars Station. Your codes are accepted. Follow docking instructions." "On Channel 6, a human voice said over the communication system. Trellick felt his heart's beating faster. None of his people had actually met a human in person before. They had only exchanged messages from a safe distance. The shuttle docked with a soft thud. Trellick adjusted his breathing mask. Human atmosphere. Had too much oxygen for Lumari comfort, and waited as the airlock cycled. The door slid open, revealing a tall figure. By Lumari standards, the human looked terrifying. Dense muscles moved under thin fabric as the human stepped forward. Its skin was a light brown, its face partially covered with hair, and its eyes were fixed directly on Trellick, a gesture that would be deeply aggressive among his own people. "Ambassador Trellick, I'm Captain Frank Miller, UNSC First Contact Division. Welcome to Mars Station." The human extended a hand, a greeting gesture Trellick had been briefed about. Carefully, he reached out with his upper right arm and touched the human's hand. The strength in the human's gentle grip was alarming. "Thank you for receiving me, Captain Miller. My mission is urgent." Miller nodded. "Let's talk in the conference room. I've called Lieutenant Grant to help with communication." They walked through metal corridors. Trellick noticed everything was built much sturdier than Lumari ships. Even the air felt heavy with Earth-normal gravity. In the conference room, another human waited. This one had longer hair and different body proportions. "Ambassador, this is Lieutenant Olivia Grant, our xenolinguistics specialist." The human female nodded. "Welcome, Ambassador. I've studied your language extensively. Trellick was impressed when she spoke several phrases in perfect Lumari. Perhaps these creatures were not just warriors after all. "Now," said Captain Miller, sitting down, "what brings you all this way?" Trellick connected a small device to the table's computer port. "This is why." The screen on the wall lit up with images of the Ardani worlds, burning forests filled with plant-like beings running from shadowy predators, cities made of living wood, being torn apart. The Vex arrived 3 cycles ago. They attack, they harvest, they move on. The Ardani are being systematically destroyed. Lieutenant Grant's face showed a strange expression. "They're just killing them? For what purpose?" "The Vex harvest biological components. The Ardani have certain cellular structures the Vex value." Captain Miller's face darkened. "They're farming sentient beings." "Yes," Trellick said. "The Lumari cannot stop them. We are scientists and traders, not warriors. But humans." Miller stood up suddenly, startling Trellick. "I need to contact UNSC headquarters. Lieutenant, continue the briefing." As Miller left, Trellick noticed how quickly the human moved. Everything about them seemed faster, more intense than other species. Admiral Patricia Daniels looked at the report on her screen with deep concern. First contact with a new hostile species was always complicated, especially when that contact involved the slaughter of innocents. "What do you think, Admiral?" asked General Howard from the holographic display. "I think we need more information before we commit forces," she replied. "But we can't ignore this either." She made her decision. "Captain Miller, assemble a small assessment team, your best people. Go with the Lumari ambassador. See the situation firsthand, then report back. Tell them to be prepared for possible engagement. But their primary mission is intelligence gathering." "Yes, Admiral," Miller replied from the Mars Station Communication link. After the call ended, General Howard's hologram looked troubled. "You realize what this could mean? If we get involved in a conflict on behalf of non-human species—" "I know," Daniel said, "but ask yourself this. If these Vex finish with the Ardani, who will they harvest next? Better to understand the threat now than face it unprepared later." The scout ship Horizon was small but fast. Commander Scott Peterson walked through the ship, checking preparations. Around him, his team was securing equipment. "Dr. Ward, are your bioscanners calibrated for non-human life forms?" he asked. Dr. Allison Ward nodded. "Yes, sir. The Lumari provided basic biological profiles of both the Ardani and what little they know of the Vex." Nearby, Sergeant Kyle, Reeves checked weapons. "These stun rounds won't do much if these Vex are as aggressive as they say." "Standard rounds in reserve, but we're not looking for a fight," Peterson reminded him. "We observe, we assess, we report back." Engineer Samantha Brooks looked up from her console. "Ship systems are green across the board, Commander. The stealth modifications should keep us off most standard sensors." "Good," Peterson said. "Where's Rodriguez?" "Running final checks on the shuttle," Brooks answered. Ambassador Trellick watched, the humans with nervous fascination. They moved with purpose and confidence, preparing for danger as if it were routine. Perhaps that was why they survived on their death world. They expected trouble and were always ready for it. When Ensign Alan Rodriguez entered, wiping engine grease from his hands, Trellick noticed he was bleeding slightly from a cut on his arm. "You're injured," Trellick said with concern. Rodriguez glanced at the cut. "Oh, it's nothing, just nicked myself on a panel." The casual dismissal of an injury that would have sent a Lumari to a medical facility shocked Trellick. These humans truly were different. Captain Miller entered the hangar. "Your departure clearance is approved. Ambassador Trellick, these are our best people. They'll assess the situation and help determine our response." As the team boarded the Horizon, Trellick felt both hope and unease. He was bringing Deathworlders to a conflict they knew nothing about, but watching them prepare, efficient, focused, unafraid, he understood why humans had survived on a planet that should have killed them. Sometimes survival required more than peace and wisdom. Sometimes it required those who knew how to fight. The Horizon's engines glowed blue as it left Mars behind, carrying humanity's first response to an alien cry for help. The Horizon dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Ardani system. Ensign Rodriguez eased the ship into a slow approach, keeping them hidden behind the system's outer moon. Sensors active, running silent, Engineer Brooks said from her station. I'm picking up a lot of activity near the third planet. Commander Peterson leaned forward to study the screen. Magnify. The view changed to show the green-blue planet. Dark shapes moved in orbit around it, ships with sharp, angular designs. Unlike anything human engineers would build. Those must be Vex vessels, Peterson said. Count? 17 larger ships, unknown number of smaller craft, Brooks replied. They're concentrating around the southern continent. Ambassador Trellick shuddered. The Ardani capital region is there. Dr. Ward was focused on her own screen. I'm detecting massive energy discharges on the surface. They're using some kind of plasma weapons. Sergeant Reeves checked the tactical display. Their ship formation is strange. No perimeter defense, no scout patterns. It's like they don't expect any resistance. They probably don't, Trellick said sadly. The Ardani have no weapons that could harm them. Peterson made a decision. Rodriguez, take us closer. Stay in the planet's shadow. Brooks, full sensor sweep. Record everything. Dr. Ward, I want detailed analysis of both species. Reeves, evaluate their military capabilities. As they moved closer to the planet, they began to receive broken communications. Cries for help mixed with reports of destruction. Doctor, Ward worked quickly with her equipment. Commander, I'm getting biological readings on both species. The Ardani are plant-based life forms, photosynthetic, with complex neural systems concentrated in their upper portions. And the Vex? Peterson asked. Predatory. Highly evolved. Similar to Earth's apex predators but with cybernetic enhancements. Their biology suggests they evolved on a high-radiation world with scarce resources. Trellick moved closer. What are they doing to the Ardani? Dr. Ward's face grew serious. They're harvesting them, specifically targeting their neural tissue and a chemical compound in their cellular structure. It appears the Vex use these components for their own biological processes. They're eating them, Reeves said bluntly. More complex than that, Ward replied. They're extracting specific compounds that their bodies can't produce naturally. The ship continued its silent approach. Soon they were close enough to see the surface with their own eyes. Green forests burned. Crystalline cities crumbled. The Ardani, tall willowy beings with branch-like limbs and flowing leaf-like features, were running from darker, faster creatures that moved with terrifying efficiency. My God, whispered Rodriguez. Peterson's jaw tightened. Brooks, focus. Sensors on the Vex ships, I want to know their weaknesses. Reeves' tactics assessment. Sergeant Reeves studied the battle patterns. They're systematic, grid-by-grid destruction, but they're not expecting opposition. No guards on their flanks, minimal air cover. They've never faced a real military force. Commander, Brooks called out. I've analyzed their ship designs. Their hulls are tough, but their propulsion systems seem vulnerable. And they're using a linked communication network. If we could disrupt it? Peterson nodded. Good work. Continue monitoring. Ambassador Trellick looked at the humans with growing unease. He noticed how they studied the destruction not with horror but with calculating eyes. They weren't shocked by violence. They were analyzing how to counter it. We're here only to observe, he reminded them nervously. Before Peterson could respond, Rodriguez called out. Commander, I'm picking up a concentrated attack on a settlement near the smaller ocean. Large Ardani population being surrounded by Vex forces. They watched as Vex troops closed in on a beautiful crystal structure filled with Ardani civilians. Dr. Ward's voice was tight. Many of them are young, children, by their biological signatures. A long silence fell over the bridge. Peterson stared at the images, then at his team. No words were needed. He saw the same determination in all their eyes. Ambassador Trellick, he said finally. I understand our mission was reconnaissance only. But we can't just watch this happen. Trellick looked at the settlement, then back, at the human. What can 5 of you possibly do against so many? Sergeant Reeves smiled grimly. You'd be surprised what humans can do when we're angry. Peterson made the call. Rodriguez, take us in. Use the storm front as cover. Reeves, prep the drop pods. Brooks, jam their local communications. Dr. Ward, gather your medical supplies. We're going down there. The horizon dove through the atmosphere, riding the storm winds in a way that made Trellick grip his seat in terror. The human pilot handled the violent turbulence as if it were a minor inconvenience. Vex ships haven't spotted us, Brooks reported. Their sensors can't penetrate this storm. They evolved on a world with minimal weather patterns, Dr. Ward explained. They're not adapted to filter out atmospheric interference. Rodriguez brought the ship to hover above the clouds, near the threatened settlement. Ready when you are. Commander. Peterson and Reeves strapped into the drop pods, small armored capsules designed for rapid deployment to hostile environments. Each wore light combat armor and carried weapons. We drop, create confusion, and extract as many civilians as possible, Peterson explained. Brooks will use the ship's systems to disrupt their communications. Dr. Ward stays aboard to handle injured refugees. Trellick watched in disbelief. This is madness. You'll be killed. Reeves checked his rifle. Wouldn't be the first time someone tried. The pods launched, plummeting through the storm toward the surface below. The Vex commander, Krytix, moved methodically through the Ardani settlement. His harvest troops worked efficiently, separating useful specimens from those too old or damaged to provide good neural tissue. A subordinate approached. Perimeter secure, Commander. Processing begins in... A massive thunderclap interrupted him. Except it wasn't thunder. 2 metal objects smashed into the ground nearby, cracking the crystal pavement. Before the dust settled, the objects split open and strange creatures emerged, moving faster than any species the Vex had encountered. One of the creatures fired a weapon. The sound was deafening. 3 Vex soldiers fell. Unknown hostiles. The subordinate shouted, "Mobilize!" His communication device went silent. All communication devices went silent. Aboard the horizon, Engineer Brooks smiled as her jamming program took effect. Communications disabled. They can't coordinate. On the ground, Peterson and Reeves moved with practiced efficiency. Where the Vex expected prey, they found predators. Left flank, Peterson called out, firing controlled bursts that dropped 2 more Vex soldiers. Reeves was already moving, faster than the Vex could track. Humans evolved on a higher gravity world, with reflexes honed by millennia of fighting, both animals and each other. Against the methodical Vex, they were like ghosts. "Get back," Reeves shouted to a group of terrified Ardani. "Head for the northern exit." The plant-like beings hesitated, then began to move. They had never seen creatures fight the Vex before. Peterson tossed a smoke grenade, filling the area with thick cover. The Vex, with their highly evolved sensory organs, were suddenly blind. "Reeves, cover the evacuation. I'll hold this position." In orbit, Trellick watched the sensor feeds in amazement. They're actually doing it. The horizon descended closer, extending its loading ramp as Ardani civilians began to gather at the extraction point. "Bringing us in," Rodriguez announced. "Dr. Ward, prepare for refugees." The first Ardani reached the ship, their leaf-like appendages trembling. They had never seen humans before, and despite their terror of the Vex, they hesitated before these strange new aliens. Dr. Ward stepped forward, making herself look as non-threatening as possible. "It's okay. We're here to help." One young Ardani moved forward, placing a tendril-like hand in Ward's. Others slowly followed. On the ground, the Vex were regrouping. Without communications, they relied on direct line of sight to coordinate. More troops were arriving. "Time to go," Peterson said into his comm. "Reeves, fall back to extraction point." "On my way," came the reply. "Got some followers, though." A large Vex force had Reeves pinned behind a crystal structure. He fired precise shots, each one finding its target, but there were too many. Peterson moved toward his position. "Hold on." He threw his last stun grenade, temporarily disorienting the Vex troops, then laid down covering fire as Reeves sprinted from his position. That's the last group of civilians, Brooks reported from the ship. Vex reinforcements are 3 minutes out. The two humans fought their way back to the horizon, where the last Ardani refugees were boarding. Peterson took a plasma shot to his shoulder but kept moving. Humans are hit by energy weapons and keep fighting? Trellick asked in disbelief. We're stubborn that way, Rodriguez replied, preparing for takeoff. Peterson and Reeves jumped aboard as the ramp closed behind them. Rodriguez immediately pushed the engines to maximum, rocketing the ship back toward the storm cover. Did we get them all? Peterson asked, allowing Dr. Ward to examine his injury. 34 Ardani civilians, Brooks reported. The rest were already taken. The horizon broke atmosphere just as Vex ships began to mobilize. Rodriguez pushed the engines beyond safety limits, heading for the jump point. Jump coordinates set, he called out. They're following but can't catch us before we clear the gravity well. Admiral Patricia Daniels stood motionless as she watched the video feed. The images showed Vex troops harvesting Ardani civilians. Then came footage of Peterson and Reeves fighting back, moving with a speed and precision that made even her proud. When the recording ended, the room was silent. 20 high-ranking military officers sat around the table, processing what they had seen. So, Admiral Daniels finally said, Commander Peterson exceeded his orders. General Carter, head of the Marine Corps, leaned forward. And saved 34 civilians while giving us priceless intelligence on an enemy that might eventually reach our borders. Daniels nodded. The question now is our response. A holographic star map appeared above the table, showing the Ardani system and surrounding space. Red markers indicated Vex ship movements. The Vex have already destroyed 3 Ardani colony worlds and are halfway through their home planet. Daniels continued. Dr. Ward's report indicates they will continue this pattern, moving from system to system as they exhaust resources. How strong is their fleet? Asked Admiral Rogers. Based on Brooks's analysis, approximately 50 capital ships and 200 smaller vessels. Their technology is advanced, but they have weaknesses. They evolved as apex predators and have never faced significant resistance. Their tactics are direct and unimaginative. General Carter smiled grimly. Sounds like they need to meet the human race. The Defense Secretary spoke up. This would be our first direct military intervention on behalf of a non-human species. The political implications. With respect, Madam Secretary, Daniels interrupted. If these Vex move through the Ardani system, the Lumari worlds are next. After that, they'll be approaching the edge of human space. Better to stop them now, than wait until they're at our doorstep. The room fell silent again as they considered the options. Finally, the Secretary nodded. Prepare your recommendations for the President. If we do this, we do it right. 3 days later, the order came. Earth would respond to the Ardani distress call with full military force. Rear Admiral Gregory Wells stood on the bridge of the carrier Intrepid, watching as ships gathered at the jump point. 3 battle cruisers, Defender, Liberty, and Guardian, formed the core of the battle group. Around them, smaller destroyers, troop transports, and support vessels moved into formation. Fleet assembly at 90%, Admiral, reported Captain Cynthia Powell from the Defender. All ships report ready status. Wells nodded. Begin final preparations. We jump in 6 hours. Across the fleet, soldiers and sailors prepared for humanity's first interstellar war. In the Intrepid's briefing room, Sergeant Reeves addressed a group of Marine Special Forces. The Vex are strong and fast, but they've never fought humans before, he explained, showing tactical displays from his earlier mission. They don't adapt quickly to new situations. They don't understand cover fire or flanking maneuvers. Most importantly, they don't expect us to be as tough as we are. A young Marine raised her hand. Sir, what about the Ardani? What are they like? Reeves' expression softened slightly. Peaceful, plant-based life forms. They've built beautiful cities but have no concept of warfare. Our job is to keep the Vex away from them long enough to evacuate as many as possible. In the science bay, Dr. Ward worked with a team of xenobiologists, studying samples taken from the Vex. Their cellular structure has weaknesses, she explained to Engineer Brooks, who had joined her. They're vulnerable to certain compounds that are harmless to both humans and Ardani. I'm developing a countermeasure that should slow them down. Brooks nodded, impressed. I've been working on their communication system. If we can disrupt it on a larger scale, we can break their coordination completely. Meanwhile, Ambassador Eric Lawson faced a different challenge. In a large meeting room aboard the diplomatic vessel Peace, he addressed representatives from 12 alien civilizations. The Vex threat is not limited to the Ardani, he explained. Their pattern suggests they will continue to new systems once they've consumed all useful resources. The human fleet is mobilizing, but we invite your species to join our coalition, the Sais, aliens murmured among themselves. Most looked skeptical. A tall, insect-like being stood. Why should we trust humans with this task? Your species is known for aggression and warfare. Lawson smiled. Precisely because we understand warfare. The Vex are predators who have never faced resistance. We humans evolved on a world filled with predators, including ourselves. We learn to defend, to fight back, to protect those who cannot protect themselves. He activated a screen showing the footage of Peterson and Reeves rescuing Ardani civilians. Yes, humans know war. But we also know when to fight for the right reasons. On the Lamari homeworld, the Council watched news of the human fleet's mobilization with mixed feelings. Have we unleashed something worse than the Vex? One counselor worried. Ambassador Trellick, recently returned from the Horizon mission, shook his head. I've seen the humans up close now. Yes, they are warriors, but they fight to protect, not to conquer. Can we be certain? Asked the head counselor. No, Trellick admitted. But I watched 5 humans charge into battle against overwhelming odds to save strangers. I believe that speaks to their character. Throughout nearby star systems, news spread of the human response. Species that had always viewed Earth as a dangerous, quarantined world filled with primitive, violent beings now watched in fascination, as that same violence was directed at a common enemy. Rear Admiral Wells addressed the fleet commanders one final time before the jump. This will be humanity's first interstellar military operation. We're fighting for another species, on worlds we've never visited, against an enemy we barely understand. But make no mistake, this is also about our future. If the Vex aren't stopped, they'll eventually reach human worlds. He looked at each officer in turn. The Ardani and Lumari think we're dangerous because we come from a high-gravity, radiation-filled death world. They're right. We are dangerous, and today, we're dangerous for a purpose. In the Intrepid's medical bay, an Ardani refugee named Nelith watched humans prepare for battle. The plant-like being had never imagined such creatures existed, fast-moving, hard-bodied beings who breathed oxygen as a primary gas rather than a trace element. Why do your people help us? Nelith asked Dr. Ward, who was checking the environmental settings for the Ardani refugees. Ward paused. Because we can, and because if we don't stop the Vex now, they'll keep hunting other species. But you risk your lives, Nelith said, still confused. Ward smiled. Humans understand something about being prey. Our earliest ancestors were hunted by predators. We learned to stand together against threats. It's in our nature to fight back, not just for ourselves, but for those who can't. As the jump countdown began, Captain Powell walked the decks of the Defender. The crew worked with practiced efficiency, but she noticed the tension. This wasn't a drill or a border skirmish with another human faction. This was something entirely new. Captain, a young officer approached. Engineering reports the shields are modified according to Brooks's specifications. They should be more effective against Vex weapons. Good, Powell nodded. And the new tactical maneuvers? Combat teams have drilled them repeatedly. We're ready. Powell looked out a viewport at the assembled fleet, the largest military force humans had ever sent beyond their own system. Ships bearing the flags of many Earth nations, united against an external threat. You know, she said quietly, throughout our history, humans fought each other more than anyone else. We divided by nation, race, religion, anything we could think of. But when faced with a common enemy, the officer finished her thought. We stand together. Powell nodded. And that makes us more dangerous than any species that hunts alone. The jump countdown reached 0. One by one, the ships of the human fleet disappeared into faster-than-light travel, bound for the Ardani system. Aboard the lead ship, Rear Admiral Wells received a final message from Earth. It was from Admiral Daniels, and contained only 4 words. Make humanity proud. Godspeed. As the stars stretched and warped around the Intrepid, Wells thought about the strange turn of events. Humans had been feared and contained by the galactic community because they evolved on a world that should have killed them. Their strength, endurance, and capacity for violence had made them outcasts. Now those same traits made them the galaxy's last hope. The Deathworlders were coming, and for the first time, the Vex would learn what it meant to be prey. The Vex commander Krytik stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the destruction of another Ardani city. The harvesting was proceeding well. Soon they would move to the next system. Commander, a subordinate approached. Our outer sensors have detected unusual energy signatures at the edge of the system. Critics dismissed this with a wave. Probably more refugee ships. Capture them if possible. No, Commander. These are different. Larger. Moving in formation. Before critics could respond, the space near the 5th planet lit up. Dozens of ships appeared, unlike any the Vex had seen before. They moved with purpose, quickly forming a battle array. What species is this? Krytix demanded. The sensor officer checked his readings. Unknown. Not in our database. Krytix watched the approaching fleet with growing concern. These were not the simple transport vessels of the Ardani, nor the research ships of the Lumari. These were warships. For the first time in his long career of conquest, Krytix felt something unfamiliar. Uncertainty. Rear Admiral Wells watched the tactical display as the human fleet emerged from jump points. The ships moved smoothly into their assigned positions. All vessels report successful arrival. Captain Powell reported from the Defender. No jump damage. Vex fleet detected, called out the sensor officer. Main concentration in orbit around the Ardani homeworld. Some ships are moving to intercept. Wells nodded. They're curious. They don't know what to make of us yet. He opened a fleet-wide channel. This is Admiral Wells. Begin Operation Thunderbolt. The fleet split into 3 battle groups. The first, led by the Guardian, moved to protect the Ardani planet. The second, under Captain Powell's Defender, headed directly toward the main Vex fleet. The third, comprising faster destroyers and the carrier Intrepid, swung wide around the system's star. Let's show them how humans fight, Wells said. On the Ardani surface, Colonel Jack Warren led the first wave of landing craft toward the planet's northern continent. Marines in combat armor prepared for deployment. Remember your training, Warren told them. The Vex are strong but predictable. They've never faced an enemy that fights back effectively. The transports broke atmosphere, flying low over burning forests. Below, Ardani civilians were fleeing from Vex hunting parties. Drop zone in 30 seconds, the pilot announced. Warren checked his weapon one last time. When we hit the ground, immediate perimeter formation. First priority is civilian extraction. The transport doors opened, and human soldiers dropped onto the alien soil. They moved with practiced precision, forming defensive positions as more transports arrived. The Vex hunters, who had been casually pursuing Ardani civilians, suddenly found themselves facing something new. The first volley of human fire dropped, several Vex before they could react. Warren watched his tactical display as the battle positions formed. Push forward to those crystal structures. That's our evacuation point. Across the battlefield, humans moved faster than the Vex expected, using terrain for cover, supporting each other with coordinated fire. The Vex, used to hunting unresisting prey, struggled to adapt to these new tactics. In orbit, the space battle was intensifying. Captain Powell stood calmly on the Defender's bridge as Vex energy weapons struck the ship's shields. Shields holding at 80%, reported her tactical officer. Their weapons are powerful but slow to recharge. Powell nodded. Execute maneuver Delta 6. The Defender suddenly changed course, accelerating at a rate that would have injured any non-human crew. Two smaller destroyers followed, creating a spear formation that drove straight toward a cluster of Vex ships. "Fire main batteries," Powell ordered. The human ships released a barrage of missiles and energy weapons. The Vex vessels, arranged in a simple defensive pattern, couldn't adjust quickly enough. 3 Vex ships exploded. The others began to scatter, their coordinated formation breaking apart. They don't understand naval warfare, Powell realized. They've never needed to fight in space. She opened a channel to Admiral Wells. "Their fleet coordination is breaking." Brooks was right. "They rely on a central command structure." "Good," Wells replied. "Implement Phase 2. On the Intrepid, Engineer Brooks and Dr. Ward worked together in the science bay. They had combined their research, Brooks' analysis of Vex communications and Ward's biological countermeasures. "The frequency modulation is ready," Brooks said. "If their neural patterns work the way we think, this should disrupt their ability to process information quickly." Ward nodded. "Combined with the compound I've isolated, it should give our ground forces an edge." Admiral Wells entered the lab. "Are you ready? The Vex have started to adapt to our standard tactics." "Ready, sir," Brooks confirmed. "But we'll need to get closer to their command ship for maximum effect." Wells smiled. "That's already happening." In the Defender's hangar bay, Sergeant Reeves briefed his Special Forces team. "Our job is to board the Vex command ship and plant the disruptor device. Once active, it will break their communication network and release Dr. Ward's compound into their life support systems." The soldiers checked their vacuum-rated combat armor. This would be the first human boarding action against an alien vessel. "The Vex don't expect anyone to board their ships," Reeves continued. "They've never encountered an enemy capable of it. We'll use that surprise to our advantage." Commander Peterson, his shoulder still healing from the earlier mission, approached the team. "I should be going with you," he said to Reeves. Reeves shook his head. "You'll coordinate from the Defender. We need your eyes watching the bigger picture." The boarding craft was small and fast, designed to attach to enemy ships. As the team loaded in, Peterson gave Reeves a final nod. "Remember, they've never fought humans before. Use that." On the Ardani surface, the battle was turning. Colonel Warren's forces had established a secure zone around the evacuation point. Transports were loading with Ardani civilians. Warren moved forward with the front line, where the fighting was heaviest. The Vex had finally begun to coordinate their counterattack, bringing in larger troops with heavier weapons. "Sir," a Marine called out, "they're flanking our eastern position." Warren adjusted his strategy immediately. "Rodriguez, take your squad and cut them off. Davis, give them covering fire." The humans moved quickly, surprising the Vex with their speed and adaptability. Where the Vex expected the Defenders to fall back, the humans instead attacked. "They keep changing tactics," a Vex commander hissed to his subordinates. "They don't fight like prey." In space, the Defender maneuvered close to the Vex flagship. The boarding craft launched, using the chaos of the battle as cover. "Approaching target," Reeves reported. "No sign they've detected us." The craft attached to the Vex ship's hull with a muffled thud. Cutting tools quickly created an entry point. "Breaching now," Reeves announced. The Special Forces team entered the alien vessel, moving through strange corridors designed for different bodies. They encountered little resistance at first. The Vex had never considered the need for internal security. "This way," Brooks guided them remotely. "The central communication node should be ahead." The team planted explosives at key junctions, setting up their retreat path. When they reached the central chamber, they found it filled with Vex technicians. "Deploy smoke grenades," Reeves ordered. The room filled with thick smoke. The Vex, with their highly sensitive eyes, were completely blinded. The human soldiers, wearing helmets with thermal vision, moved through the chaos with ease. "Setting the device now," Reeves reported, attaching Brooks's disruptor to the main control panel. Initiating countdown. Admiral Wells watched the battle unfold on his tactical display. The Vex fleet was fighting back more effectively now, having begun to adapt to human tactics. But they were still too rigid, too predictable. "Sir," his communications officer called out. "Message from Sergeant Reeves. Devices planted. Countdown initiated." Wells nodded. "All ships, prepare for Phase 3. When that device activates, hit them with everything we have." Throughout the human fleet, weapon systems powered up to maximum. On the planet's surface, Colonel Warren's forces prepared for a coordinated push. The device on the Vex flagship activated with a pulse of energy that was invisible but immediately effective. Throughout the Vex fleet, communication systems suddenly filled with static and confusion. On the flagship's bridge, Commander Kratix clutched his head in pain as the neural disruptor affected his brain patterns. Around him, other Vex officers did the same. "What is happening?" he demanded, but his words came slowly, his thoughts clouded. Through the ship's ventilation system, Dr. Ward's compound spread, further slowing the Vex reactions. "Now!" Admiral Wells ordered. The human fleet surged forward, weapons blazing. The Vex ships, suddenly uncoordinated and slow to respond, were caught in devastating crossfire. On the surface, Warren's forces pushed forward against equally confused ground troops. "They're breaking!" a Marine shouted as the Vex began to retreat. Reeves and his team fought their way back to the boarding craft, facing increasingly disorganized resistance. As they reached their extraction point, they encountered the Vex commander. Himself, Kratix, though affected by the disruptor, was still dangerous. He charged at Reeves with savage strength, knocking the sergeant back. "Your species fights well," Kratix growled, his speech slurred by the compound. "But we have conquered many worlds.